So lately, I've been struggling a lot with creativity, which has led me to procrastinating. When I procrastinate, I try to look for outside inspiration or motivation, like many of us do. I start watching YouTube videos or listening to audiobooks and podcasts. And doing that this time around let me stumble across Rick Rubin's new book, The Creative Act. I noticed that Rick Rubin was popping up in different podcasts that I usually listen to, and I realized that he was pitching his new book. And considering that he's one of the greatest music producers of our time, and the book had to do with creativity, I thought it would be a good thing for me to listen to. I usually listen to audiobooks because I don't really have time to read. Early on listening to the audiobook, there was a few things that stood out to me. Some of it had to do with what almost seemed like the law of attraction, maybe a little bit of manifestation. It seemed like in his book, Rubin was talking about finding ideas and letting ideas come to you, and taking hints that the universe is trying to tell you and whatnot. It did sound a lot like different stuff that I've heard before from different people like Earl Nightingale and Napoleon Hill, others that talk about similar manifestation, law of attraction type things. I try to say that I don't believe in that stuff, but it seems to keep coming around. I don't know if I'm manifesting it or attracting it, but it does seem to pop up very often. He says to create for the sake of creating for yourself, sort of like the creation should be a diary and not so much for other people to engage with. It will find people if it's worth finding. And I do feel that that's kind of the route I've been taking with my content lately. Another thing that popped up while I was listening to this audiobook was an exercise that Ruben said that I thought would be fun to do and see what I can make of it in a video. They came around a point in the book when Rubin was talking about looking for ideas or letting ideas come to you, or trying to open your mind up to seeing what the world around you has to offer. I'm paraphrasing all this, but he gets to talking about how the material and ideas and creativity exists within, and he mentions a practice. He said to try an anger releasing exercise and beat on a pillow for 5 minutes. He said, time yourself and go hard. And then he said, immediately fill 5 pages with whatever comes out. He says the objective is to not think about it and to avoid directing the content in any way. And I thought, well, I've got a punching bag in the garage. And of course, since I'm a YouTuber, I'm not going to write 5 pages. I'm going to whip out the camera and try to make a video out of this. I guess this is an attempt to bring out some information and creativity from our subconscious. So here we go.
All right, that was 5 minutes. I should have wrapped my hands. I wasn't hitting it as hard as I could, but I was hitting it pretty hard. You know, in the book, Rick Rubin says to punch a pillow angrily for 5 minutes and then write 5 pages. And I'm not much of a writer. I journal a little bit, but I was doing this just to try that creative exercise that he calls out in the book and just see what flows out of me after this. Let me turn this timer off. I guess this would be the YouTuber's equivalent of trying to put 5 pages down. You know, I'm trying not to think about too much and just let my thoughts go. And you know, it's funny, as I was hitting this bag and letting out some energy and a little bit of aggression, I was thinking about like how much I kind of let myself go the last couple months, because I was really getting at it in the summertime. And then I started thinking about like more of my childhood. And even though I boxed a little bit when I was an adult, my first time boxing was actually when I was like 14 or 15 years old. Same reason why every kid learns how to box, right? Somebody beats you up bad enough, you end up going to a boxing gym and trying to learn how to defend yourself. It was funny, it actually wasn't my idea. At the time, I had a friend of mine. He had kind of a rough life too, and his dad used to be a boxer, and his dad had died. It was about that life, so that's kind of what happened to him. His mom also hustled a bit as well, but he was a couple years older than me, and for some reason or another, he took me under his wing. No idea why, and he was really like one of the cool kids. And at this point in time, I was kind of an awkward 14-year-old kid, and I told the story before when I talked about my friend Drew, who got shot by an off-duty cop a few years back and died. I got beat up, like fighting for a bag of weed. Drew was with me that day, and then shortly after that, my other buddy that was like a big brother to me took me to the boxing gym, and for a summer I learned how to throw hands a little bit, and I learned how to fight. I'm not much of a boxer, I'll be the first one to admit that. I wasn't trying to look cool or anything hitting the bag. I was just doing my best. Like I said, I boxed a little bit afterwards when I was an adult, and it's kind of weird thinking about how I grew up and how different life is now. And I think about that often. It's not the first time I think about it. I think about like just how hard life is for so many of us and how we just have to fight for everything. Life is a constant battle, and there's some good times and there's some bad times, but you kind of always just have to keep fighting. Right now, I'm getting ready to head to Miami in the morning because a very close family member of mine is going to start a really hard battle, and they're going to be fighting cancer, and it's not looking good. And I'm going to be there for their first round of chemo. I don't want to put too much of my personal business out there. I talk about some of my personal stuff sometimes, and I talk about my personal life and I talk about my experiences, but it's hard to put yourself out there sometimes. And I notice that the more I put myself out there, the more I tend to get back. But this isn't my thing to put out. I'm just going to be there for somebody who I care a lot about. And I'm going to try to help them through probably one of the hardest fights that him and I are going to have to go through. And that's been weighing heavily on my mind lately, and a lot of other stuff too, right? This came at a strange time because I'm supposed to be packing and getting ready for this big trip that we're going to be doing, selling stuff and cleaning stuff and just going through all that, which is a lot of work. It's not easy. Life happens, but you keep moving forward. As far as feeling creative after that, I don't know. I feel like I'm still in pretty good shape considering I hit that for 5 minutes straight, and I was hitting it pretty decent. And I broke a little bit of a sweat and I was breathing hard, but it wasn't too bad. Been feeling like a lot of like writer's block lately. Listening to this new Rubin book, trying to see if I can tap into some creativity. A lot of things in his book really stood out to me because I've always been kind of I wouldn't say a pessimist, but more of a realist. A while back, I made a book about the bullshit of the law of attraction and manifestation and all that, and I realized how much of that stuff I've done not on purpose. Like I just have done it. For a lot of things in my life, goals that I set and things that I want. I think about them. I picture myself in those positions, and I try to work towards accomplishing the things I want to do. And when I say I'm going to do something, I kind of put that in my mind and I start taking the steps in that direction. I feel really lost right now because while I know what I want to do with like giving up my job and pursuing whatever the hell it is, just the idea of trying to gain financial freedom and not have to work a 9 to 5 and be able to like break free from that whole thing and wanting to figure something out that can get me there. Like I don't know all the steps, but I know like where I want to end up. And I know this is one of the first crucial parts of making that happen is doing what I'm doing right now, quitting the job and trying to focus all of my energy and effort and work hours on whatever I'm going to build. It's obviously this YouTube's going to be a thing and other things that will come from it. And the content that I create now is going to be different. It's going to be different than content that I made before. It's going to be different than what I originally started this channel for. And I just know that it's going to work itself out. Like some weird part of my brain, I don't know what it is, but the little voice in my head just keeps saying like, it's going to be fine. Like things are going to be okay, and we're going to figure this out, and you're going to get to where you want to be. I've done it with so many things throughout my whole life. I've done it with a lot of stuff, even from stupid things that you wouldn't think are a big deal, like getting a really good valet parking job in Vegas. If you know about Vegas, like that's a big deal. Getting a good valet gig in Vegas it can be good money, and it's people make a career out of it, and I did, and I ended up working at probably one of the best places to be a valet attendant in Las Vegas and one of the busiest strip clubs in the world, and I made good money, and that was able to afford me a lot of stuff. It did a lot for me, and it sounds as silly as it is. It's just parking cars in Las Vegas, but it was a goal that I achieved. And then the learning the code thing, that was another thing that I set out to do. That first job, I remember it was really close to my house, and I could actually drive by Caesars Entertainment corporate office on pretty much a daily basis, especially when I was going to work at 2 a.m. to the Rhino. I would drive past that office building almost every time, and on the way home, I would pass it on the freeway, and I would look at that office while my application was being processed, and I had my first interview, and I was kind of just waiting, and I would think every day, like, I'd picture myself like turning in there and parking and working in that office and doing that first software development job, and I did. My wife and I pictured ourselves having children and raising a family, and we're doing that now. And we pictured ourselves picking up and moving from Vegas and heading to Washington and moving to another job. And I did it with the YouTube thing too, when I was uploading and nobody was watching the videos, and it was like videos would get like 5 views or 10 views, and I just kept grinding and I kept at it because I was like, oh, one day I'm gonna get that silver play button, one day I'm gonna have a bunch of subscribers and I'm gonna get 1 million views and I'm gonna do all this stuff. And little by little I kept chipping away at it, and I know my numbers are down now, but that's okay, because sometimes you gotta burn the boats, right? Is it burn the boats? I think it's burn the boats. I don't know, I heard it somewhere recently where it was like some general or something burns the boats when him and his soldiers land somewhere where they're like trying to invade, and he burns the boats because there's no way to go back. So the soldiers have to fight and win the battle because they're not getting back on the boats. And I guess my quitting the job and doing all this is like my way of burning the boats. The battle that I've got coming is going to be what I need to do to conquer the next step and to get to the next point. I don't know, this feels like a long ramble. I don't know if it got any creative juices flowing or if it's just going to help me try to get through some of this writer's block and help figure stuff out. Not trying to be pessimistic in videos. I've been doing coaching calls, and someone I spoke to recently was kind of lost because of one of my videos, and I don't like that. I was just ranting about the current state of the market for developers, and I was ranting about how I don't like how a lot of YouTubers try to sell this dream and they don't keep it real, and they don't actually tell people like how hard it is and how rough it is, and the current state of everything, the job market and learning to code and all that bullshit that's going on with that. I realized that it impacted them in a negative way. I never want to like stop or slow somebody down from pursuing what they want to do. I just want to give the best information that I can, and sometimes I rant out of frustration, and I forget that there's other people on here that listen to what I have to say. And if I'm being real and I'm being honest, doesn't mean that I'm trying to discourage anyone. Maybe it's because the way that I get motivated sometimes, maybe that's because I never had like positive reinforcement, and I grew up with a lot of negativity, that negative things tend to encourage me more than positive things sometimes. I do better when people tell me that I can't do something rather than when people encourage me and tell me that I can, because I'm not used to that way of being motivated. I'm more used to being put down, and I shouldn't put anyone down or talk about something in a light that paints it as something that's not achievable, because I do still think that people can learn how to code. I do still think that it's a great job to have. It's just that my direction in life is going somewhere else. I feel like I've done that thing already. I know I can do it. It was a great stepping stone to get me to the next stage of my life and my career and whatever I'm doing next. But for people who are listening and hear me talk poorly about certain aspects of programming or learning how to code or the job market or the industry itself, just know that I try to paint the whole picture. And sometimes there are negative things, but that doesn't mean that it's all negative. There's still a lot of positive to it, and there's still a lot of opportunity out there. Just stay at it. Keep grinding. The people that are going to make it are the ones that stick around and keep trying. That's with anything in life. There's going to be ups and downs. Things are going to get rough. Markets are going to change. They're going to go up and they're going to go down. And sometimes you're in a bad market, sometimes you're in a good market. But there's that old investment saying that time in the market beats timing the market every time. I really think that's true for everything. And the longer you stay in it, the more opportunity you're going to have to accomplish anything, whether it's learning how to code or achieving your dreams of, I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling. I feel like this exercise didn't really do what I thought it was going to do, but I need content, so I'm going to post this video anyways, and hopefully it brings somebody some value somewhere out there. And with all that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.